He wasn't born a monster, but war turned him into one. Part alien, part machine, feared across the galaxy. Not for what he was, but for what he chose to become. This is the story of General Grievous, the Jedi Killer, and it is far more tragic than you think. Hello everyone, it's May, or maybe it was May, depending on when I'm actually uploading this. To honor that, I decided to do a short origin story on General Grievous, because, you know, may the 4th be with you and all that. Okay, let's go. Before he became the wheezing, lightsaber-collecting monstrosity that haunted Jedi across the galaxy, General Grievous was just another organic being with dreams, ambitions, and, believe it or not, functioning lungs. His origins trace back to the harsh, war-torn world of Kaleesh, a planet so neglected by the wider galaxy that even the Hutts thought twice about setting up shop there. To understand General Grievous, one must first understand the brutal crucible that forged him. You see, his planet was located in wild space, an area so far out, it's outside the outer rim. It was far from the glittering core worlds of the Republic. Kaleesh was a backwater, even by backwater standards. Its jungles teemed with predators that would give a rancor pause. Its deserts could strip flesh from bone in hours, and its mountain ranges hid caves filled with creatures that had never seen sunlight and liked it that way. Kaleesh was not a kind world. Its jungles were dense, its deserts unforgiving. People who originated here, the Kaleesh people, were hardened by generations of conflict. Their society was clan-based, with rival warlords constantly vying for dominance. From birth, children were taught 3 essential skills: how to hunt, how to fight, and how to survive betrayal. There were no schools, no HoloNet access, and certainly no Jedi peacekeepers. On Kaleesh, if you wanted justice, you took it for yourself. To top everything off, children were expected to contribute to the clan as soon as they could thrust a spear. Into this world came Kaimain Jai Shelal. I apologize if I'm destroying that name. Later known to the galaxy as General Grievous. His birth was not marked by prophecy or cosmic significance. No ancient text foretold his coming. He was simply another child born into a warrior culture that would either shape him into a weapon or bury him before his 10th birthday. His early life was defined by struggle, tribal warfare, and an unrelenting hatred for the Huck. Who are the Huck, you ask? Well, an insectoid species that had the misfortune of sharing a star system with the Kaleesh, but more on them later. Shelal stood out early. He was fierce, intelligent, and most importantly, ruthlessly effective in battle. He ranked up quickly as he scored victories across countless battles. Some were harder than others, but by the time he was a young man, he had already earned a reputation as a deadly hunter and tactician. His people revered him, his enemies feared him. The Huck soon learned that provoking the future Grievous was a terrible idea. He distinguished himself in these battles. Unlike other warriors who fought purely for glory, he fought with cold, calculating precision. He didn't just want to kill the Huck, he wanted to exterminate them. It was like how most of us feel about wasps. If there was a wasp army somewhere, and if people were recruiting soldiers to go burn them, I am sure a lot of people would sign up, without pay even. Okay, let's get into the Huck, as I have mentioned them a few times already. The Huck were an insectoid expansionist species, basically galactic locusts with a superiority complex. Planetary neighbors to Kaleesh, they invaded worlds, stripped them for resources, and sold off the populations into slavery. In Star Wars Legends, they were even rumored to eat the locals. Think of them as a swarm of evil twats who didn't just knock on your door. They kicked it in, looted your house, sold your family, and then asked what was for dinner. Spoiler, it was probably you. The Huck were constantly pushing into Kaleesh territory, raiding villages and the like. It is odd that these type of inhumanities happened right under the nose of the Republic. Sure, it was outside their controlled systems, but they still had influence, but at this time, the Republic was a deeply corrupt and barely held together by a bunch of aristocrats. To the Kaleesh, the Huks' actions were unacceptable. To Shalal, it was personal. These Huks were the worst monsters in the galaxy, made of pure evil, much like wasps, but even worse. They were not worthy of respect. They were only good for destroying. So, he rose through the ranks of his people's military forces, becoming a warlord whose name alone could send Huk commanders into retreat, and often did. Future Grievous's favorite pastime was striking Huk supply lines, ambushing patrols, and using the planet's harsh terrain to their advantage. He wasn't just a warrior, he was a strategist. He understood that war wasn't just about killing the enemy, it was about breaking their will, and break them he did. The Huk, once confident in their superiority, found themselves on the back foot, their forces dwindling like water in a hot pan under the relentless pressure of the Kaleesh onslaught. Under his leadership, the Kaleesh adopted brutal guerrilla tactics. Tactics that would make even the ancient Sith grimace in disgust. He pioneered the use of hit and run tactics, psychological warfare, and traps that turned the Huk's own numbers against them. As Shalal grew older, his reputation spread. Other warlords sought his counsel, lesser warlords pledged themselves to his banner. By his mid-20s, he had united several major Kaleesh clans under his leadership, a feat that hadn't been accomplished in centuries, maybe ever. To the Kaleesh, he was a hero. To the Huk, he was a demon given flesh. This was also when he donned the moniker Grievous, which was a name of honor among his people, as he was a legend at this time. Just when it seemed like the Kaleesh might finally drive the Huk off their homeworld for good, the Galactic Republic decided to intervene. And, as is tradition with galactic bureaucracies, they got it completely wrong. The Huk, it turned out, had friends in high places. They spun a narrative of being the victims, painting the Kaleesh as savage aggressors, even though the Huks were the ones invading. Make it make sense. The Republic, never ones to let facts get in the way of a good political decision, sided with the Huk. Trade sanctions were imposed on Kali, crippling their economy. Weapon shipments were blocked, medical supplies held off. Suddenly, the Kaleesh weren't just fighting the Huk, they were fighting starvation, poverty, and the crushing weight of galactic indifference. Within months, the Kaleesh economy collapsed. Famine spread, diseases ran rampant. The warriors who had once stood tall now died in the streets. Grievous was furious. He had given everything for his people, only to watch them suffer because of bureaucrats who had never set foot on his world. And what happened when Grievous decided these sanctions were donkey crap and tried to force his way through the Republic? The Jedi showed up. The Jedi, the only warriors he could not simply defeat. This resentment set in his still organic heart very hard. For him, this was the ultimate betrayal. He had given everything to protect his people, only to watch them suffer because of distant politicians. The bitterness festered. The warrior who had once fought for honor, for peace, for freedom, now fought purely out of spite. With Kali in ruins, he had few options. He could stay and watch his people die out, or he could leave and seek power elsewhere. He chose the latter. He wasn't the type to retire peacefully. War was all he knew. So, like many disgraced warriors before him, he turned to the only industry that always had openings: mercenary work. Being in a position few of his people were, he was able to leave his homeworld behind and look at prospects in the greater galaxy. Then came the offer from the intergalactic banking clan. It was probably his hatred for the Republic and promise of power that drew him into the clan. You see, the intergalactic banking clan was always on the lookout for talented killers with a grudge against the Republic. They saw potential in him. They offered him a position as an enforcer, a fancy way of saying professional intimidator. It wasn't glorious work, but it got him something he deeply wanted: enhancements. For the first time, Grievous saw how vast the universe truly was and how little it cared about justice. In order to get stronger so he could save his people down the road, he began to upgrade himself little by little. He replaced organics with metal. It was slow at first, but by the time of the accident, he was improving at an astonishing rate. Then came the aforementioned accident. Officially, Grievous's shuttle suffered a catastrophic failure mid-flight, leaving him time barely alive. Unofficially, well, let's just say Count Dooku, also named Darth Tyrannus, had a habit of recruiting disgruntled warriors in need of upgrades. He lied. He said the Jedi were responsible for his crash, only fueling the hatred more. They offered him experimental power that he understood could rival and even surpass the Jedi. Finally, he saw the opportunity he needed. But Grievous knew the truth. He had been stolen from himself, turned into a monster for someone else's war. But he didn't care, not really, because this allowed him his heart's greatest desire that had been building since he felt injustice: to save his people and to slaughter the Jedi, the very enforcers of his people's suffering. He could get strong, destroy the Republic, and finally, after all this time, save his people. The changes were extensive, even adding wires to his brain and altering his memories. They tried to truly create a monster, a boogeyman for the Republic. The transition wasn't just physical. The man who had once fought for his people now fought for nothing but vengeance. The Jedi, symbols of the Republic that had abandoned Kaleesh, became his prey. He studied their techniques, hunted them down, and took their lightsabers as trophies. Each kill was a middle finger to the galaxy that had taken everything from him. The tech wasn't perfect, leaving his organics, particularly his lungs, extra exposed. Eventually, he would develop a cough, though the reason for that cough is different in Legends. Don't worry, we will get there soon. And so, the epic tale of General Grievous was born, not as a hero, not as a villain, but as a cautionary tale, a warning of what happens when a warrior's pride is so twisted into hatred, when a man's body is stolen from him, and when the galaxy decides that some lives are worth less than others. By the time of the Clone Wars were in full swing, Grievous no longer had any part of his original identity in him. He was a nightmare, a mechanical terror with a cough that announced death was coming. But buried deep beneath the gears and the rage, there was still a Kaleesh warrior who remembered the taste of real air, the weight of non-mechanical limbs, and the sting of betrayal that never truly healed. And that, perhaps, is the real tragedy of General Grievous. Not that he became a monster, but that the galaxy made sure he had no other choice. This is all I could find on him in the Disney canon. However, in Legends, his story is much darker, and I couldn't call this a lore video if I left any of that out. So let's restart with the original version of General Grievous. Shilal was born in the same way on the same planet. They still battled the Hux. He was still taught by his father and joined the never-ending war. By the time he was in his mid-20s, he was already considered a demigod among his people, known for his tactics, his skills in combat, and his friendship with Kumar. Kumar was a widely respected and extremely skilled swordsman. She taught future Grievous, well, everything. They were besties, maybe even lovers. Kumar eventually met the tragic end of dying to the Hux in a rather tragic way. Grievous spent years trying to grieve for her. He even went on an epic quest to get the gods to resurrect her, which, of course, they did not. He took many wives and bore many children, trying to bury his sorrow, but nothing worked. Eventually, he accepted he would grieve forever, so he cast off his former self, even his old name, adopting a more appropriate name, Grievous. He swore vengeance to end all things Huck related and went about destroying them all. Then, just like in the Disney canon, the Republic and the Jedi stepped in. Finding his war at a sudden end, the vengeance still burned within him, so he did the next logical thing: upgrade himself to equal the Jedi's strength. Of course, this was after he applied to become a Jedi to learn the secrets of their power, but having no Force connection at all, they flat out refused to even consider training him. Though I could not find the original comic here, so the fanbase does just consider this a theory now. With his people in ruin by the Republic's sanctions, it was the banking clan that stepped in with their false gifts. But to Grievous, this was a chance to fully embrace power. He worked as the banking clan's enforcer. He collected debts, settled disputes, and even worked on security. His combat skills were put to use here, and his boss bosses loved his worth ethic, which was to kill anyone who pissed him off too much. This was when he began to really upgrade himself. Better eyes, a stronger swing, superior shielding. He was turning into the Grievous we all know, but he needed one last push. But first, we got to go over a few key characters here. The chairman of the banking clan was Sandhill. Interesting note I want to make here, Sandhill was of the moon species, the same species as Darth Plagueis, the master of Darth Sidious, who orchestrated the entire war. It was probably very easy for Sidious, a politician from one of the wealthiest families on Naboo, to manipulate them. Anyway, Sandhill was pissed when Grievous abandoned his contract and rushed back to his homeworld. The Hux had desecrated a sacred burial ground for his people, and he wanted blood, a lot of it. His outburst of anger suggests this was where his long-dead lover, Kumar, was resting. Sandhill considered having Grievous assassinated, but thought better of killing one of the greatest warriors in the whole galaxy. So he went to his friends on Geonosis for guidance. With the help of the Archduke of the planet, and with Darth Sidious and even Count Dooku, they plotted against Grievous. When Grievous landed on his homeworld, his people praised his arrival, but as he set out to battle, an ion bomb went off in his ship. Everyone was killed, except Grievous. Count Dooku showed up and used the Sith Heart Stun to prevent Grievous from dying. They recovered his body and shipped him all the way to Geonosis to undergo treatment. Dooku manipulated Grievous and told him the bomb was of Republic and Jedi origins. This only fueled his anger more. Fun note here is that even after the crash, they had to purposely destroy more of his body, as he was just that resilient. They wanted a broken man that not even a bomb and a spaceship crash could create. It was here Grievous agreed to be changed. It was also here Count Dooku gave Grievous blood from the Jedi Master Sifo Dyas. You know, the same Jedi Master that constructed the creation of the clone army. Not much is known why Count Dooku did this in the legends. Many speculate it was to keep Grievous as strong as possible. Some think it was an attempt to give Grievous force powers. Either way, it mattered not. They rebuilt Grievous, cutting away flesh and replacing it with metal. They even went into Grievous's brain, which he told them not to, but the Separatists needed a general, and they constructed one that was perfect for their purposes in almost every way. Count Dooku was sad to see Grievous end up with no force potential still. However, to Sandhill and the Separatist allies, the experiment was a resounding success. So much of a success that the same technology would later be used to build Darth Vader's suit. Grievous hated his new look. He hated the improvements. He hated everything they had done. Much like Vader's suit, Grievous's also made him mad all the time. And in a rage, he slaughtered everything he could when Dooku called him a droid. Yet, all he could really do was adorn himself and his personal droids and the honorifics of his people, the Kaleesh. And that was it. That was the original origins of General Grievous. His first battle was on the Battle of Geonosis when Windu and the clone troops swooped in to save Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Padme. Grievous was safeguarding the Separatist leadership off the planet. This was where he first battled a Jedi, Yersema, and defeated her with an electrostaff. On her death, he collected his very first lightsaber, a trope he would keep doing until his defeat. I do think the Disney, more fleshed out version of Grievous is actually a lot better here. Definitely an 8 out of 10 origin, though it would have been nice if they actually just fleshed out his Legends origin more, as a lot of the information seems to come from the concept creators and wasn't ever finalized in any kind of media, like a comic or show or book or anything. Though after researching both origins, they can very easily just be merged together. Maybe they are actually the same origins, just focused on different things. All that said, I'm gonna end my video here. Thank you for watching, have a great day, and YouTube thinks you will like one of these videos on screen now. Also, let me know if you like this type of video, or if you think I mucked it up. I did do a fair bit of research, and I couldn't find many sources for pre-Disney Grievous. Okay, that's it. See ya.